Hello everybody, I'm just going to twizzle the camera around, so hold fire, you might go for a little bit of a ride. So let's see how we go with this, because I was upside down yesterday, that was exciting. Can you imagine? I'm just checking my iPad to make sure it's all right. Yes, we got it right today, Oh, it's a warm one, isn't it? My word. Sitting here stifling in the studio, but I don't want to open the windows because you'll be blasted by bird song. And if we get the odd fly in here, it'll drive me potty. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are going to concentrate today on texture. So we're going to look at trying to create texture in our paintings. It's a tricky one. It's difficult because we can paint it and be precise and put the shadows in. But if we're not quite as experienced as, you know, somebody who has a little more expertise, let's put it that way to be polite, what do we do to create this texture and shape and form to make it easy for ourselves? And I'm a great advocate for that because sometimes something as simple as that would put us off. Now, nature's full of it, isn't it? We have rocks, grasses. Today we're going to concentrate on a bit of grass and some bluebells. I'd like to have a little think about the trunks of silver birch trees and how do we paint the canopy of the trees in a forest and lots of layers of tree trunks. That's my plan for today, and I want to show you an easier way to deal with it. What I'll do now, I'm going to flip you around, so if you're a bit sort of, you know, with motion, close your eyes for a minute just while I turn the camera around, and we'll make sure that we've got it right. Okay, 2 minutes. Ooh. She said pulling it out of the stand. There we are. No, hold fire, hold fire. Don't panic. That's my job. There we are. I'm going to introduce a little bit of light so that we can see more readily, just a little bit like that. That should help. Okay, all right. Now, what are we going to do today? I want to create something like this. Just something like that. We'll be a little more inventive with it. I want to do something a little different today, but this is the basic. This is the basic. Now, before we start, what I would like to do is show you where I went with my project yesterday. Let me just move these bits and pieces out of the way because I promised that I would show you how I finished up yesterday. And here we go. This was our project. We created this picture of these pansies down the side of the page, and I've gone all down it and I've cut it out all the way down. But I wanted something really dramatic to stand them against so that they would show up. And what I've done in the end, I fiddled about and I faffed around. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it. But what I did was I found a black piece of paper and I've simply used the black paper and I've stuck it onto the back of that page. And that gives me options here now because I could use this now for using white paint, and I could go into night scenes and the moon. So this also gives me options rather than just a white page, but it looks lovely against that. And I quite deliberately not stuck the pansies down because I like that 3D look of it. I just enjoy that. I like it. I have gone all around my petals with a black pen, as you can see, just to make them all stand out and to make them more 3D. And I have found a photograph of a pansy that's this particular type of pansy, and I've stuck this in so that I can have a good idea of where I was going with it. And here's the Latin name for it, the common name, heart ease. And did you know, I looked it up, but there's a legend about the pansies, and it says that once they were all white, and apparently Cupid pierced the centre of the flower with his arrow, and that is when they gained the colours, the purple and yellow colours. And with the colours came the magic power, and this is why pansies have always been used to make drinks and teas for love potions. Did you know that? I didn't. So that's really cool. And it would also appear that medicinally you can use pansies to treat asthma, inflammatory lung conditions and cardiac complaints. I still have a space there, and what I'm going to do with that, I've got some little orange violas growing in the garden, and I'm going to press one and I shall put it there, and that will be my pansy page. This is the kind of thing that we can be doing with this. Now for today, I'm going to do this in 2 stages. This is the one we're going to paint, and then I have another that I painted earlier on that we can work with. I'm glad you found it, Rosie. Well done. Poor Rosie, just as I was going live, was sending a message saying, can't find it. So hi from France. Hello back from the UK. And hello, Verma Johnson. Lovely to have you with us. Now, I want to paint this on a larger piece of paper. Why? The reason for this is because if I don't like all of it, or I only like a part of it, I can cut it out and I can stick it in. I don't want to do it in my book purely and simply because I want to use a lot of water. And if I'm using a lot of water, my book is not up to it. Now, this is what I was saying yesterday, that if you're going to really use your book for lovely paintings and gorgeous illustrations, you need a decent paper in it, unlike mine. My book is not good enough for that. So this here is just £140 Bockingford, so it's good and thick. It's got a texture on it, which is good because we need that today. And I'm going to use a bit of, this is masking tape, not to stick it down. I've stuck it down already, but what I'm going to do with this is pop it on my cloth because I don't want all that amazing tack on it. It could potentially tear the paper. So I'm just going to give it a good D-stick. And over here in this corner, I'm going to put it straight through there. And that is going to be our silver birch tree later on. I want another piece like this. And I'm going to zap it again with my cloth. And this time I want to tear it. And it doesn't matter how it tears, but I want to tear it down because this time I'm going to use that for a branch. I'll have one there. I'm going to have one, I think I'll go up a bit there. And they're going to be 2 branches on my tree. And that will reserve the white paper and give us the chance to go in and work on that later, which is just what we want. Okay. All right. Next thing we're going to do is work this in 3 sections. The kind of idea that I'm going for today is something like this. So I'd like a lighter area here, and I want to put a path in so that if you're viewing this, you could potentially come in here and walk through and walk into that light area. When you're painting a picture, this is the most brilliant idea. Give your viewer somewhere to go. Don't just block it off. Want it to be larger like this for another reason. If I wanted to, I could cut that in half and I could paste it on 2 pages of my book, and then potentially I could use a page in between to paint bluebells on it, cut them out and have them free as another page, just the bluebells 3D against this. So that's something, watch this space next year. We might go for that. That could be a goodie. Now, I want to use cling film. So I have this here in my dispenser. I'm so posh, you see, I have a dispenser for mine. But let me tell you something, just a tip. Don't buy posh cling film. Don't buy it, the expensive stuff. The cheaper you buy it, the better it is. So it's thinner. And this is what we want. We want that real crumpliness that we can use. I want to start at the top of my page. I'm going to paint the tree canopy first. And the colours I want to use here today, I've got, this is cobalt blue. I'm going to use that for a bit of sky. And this is my lovely, this is a super colour, it's sap green. And I also need a darker blue to work along with that. And I think that a bluey green. And I think that what I'll do is I'll add some sap green to some of this Prussian blue. And that will make that quite dark like this. So I've put that colour there so that you can see it. That's my canopy. Therefore, let's get stuck in. I want to wet it first. Now, bear in mind the paper's thirsty. And I don't want it quickly drinking all the paint, because then it won't sit in suspension on the paper and I won't be able to get the cling film to work. Now I need this to be shiny like yesterday, but not wringing wet, and I don't want puddles. So it's damp and the paper will drink that. That's good. I've covered all of it. That's even better. And the first thing I want to do is come in, I'll put this here so that you can see, and I'm going to come in with my blue. This is the cobalt, really rather lovely. And what we're doing here is just introducing some blue in underneath the canopy of the trees, because it's going to just shine through, isn't it? We're going to see little bits of blue in the sky. I don't want a hard edge, so if I clean my brush and then I just dab it on my cloth and come through underneath like that, that softens that edge. And I know that I want darker colours in the corners, so keep that in mind. But this is the sap green, and this is that, it's a lovely colour for spring because it's acidic, it's bright, and it's shiny green. And that's just what the trees do, aren't they? It's really, really lime green when we first have that new canopy in the spring. So that's the lighter green, and then I want to take some of that into there, and I'm going to introduce a bit of my Prussian blue because I want a darker green. Don't be frightened of paint for this one, everyone. Don't be frightened of it, use it. And I'm going to put that dark green just hither and yon. Let it bleed, let it do this. Brush strokes don't matter at this point because they're all going to be obliterated anyway. So I'll have a little bit in there and there, do a bit there. Okay, so dark in the two corners. That's just what I want. And then I'm going to take my cling film and you want to really scumble it. So I don't want it to be beautiful. I want it to be creased and uggy, because I'm going to put it on and the cling film is going to make all of your textures, all of it. You can already see, can you see how that's going to work? How that's going to work, look at that. We'll get all these textures in the greenery. Another piece for the other side. And I'm going to come over here and again, I'm going to screw it all up. And the more you do this, the better it is, of course. And if you're not happy, you can lift it and just move it around again. As long as it's still wet underneath, press it so that you get all these lovely creases. Push it down like this. There we are. And that should give us a nice canopy with lots and lots of texture in it. The next thing we want to do, we'll just leave that for a second. I'm going to fold that up like that. All right, and then I'm going to come through here and I want to introduce my trees, my trunks. So I'm wetting it up to this line here. And then I want to introduce this little light area here. And I think that I'll just drop in a little bit of yellow like that. And then I want a little bit of this lovely, lovely, this is the burnt sienna. It's a warm, soft brown, orangey brown. So we'll have some of that, shall we? And again, don't be frightened of colour, because if you make it too pale, it won't react, it won't show. So I'm going to just add a little bit through there. And now I'm going into burnt umber. Like this. Like that. My brush is molting. I think I'm going to need a new brush. And I'm going to bring some through down there. And now I'm going to be brave and fearless, and I want to just pick up a tad. This is gorgeous Payne's Grey, because I do need some darker areas. It'll be dark and shady down here, down along there. And just introduce a few darker trees like this, different angles. Okay, I still think I want a bit more of the burnt umber. I'm not getting a lot of colour off this. It's hot, it's dried. The temperature's quite warm and my paint's dried in the palette. That's better. That's better. Right, so what we're going to do now is something completely different. Instead of scumbling it, I want a piece of my cling film. And I'm going to tear it, because I don't want that great big chunk like that initially. And this time, we're not going to scumble it on, we're going to stretch it on. And we're going to push it so that it's in lines like this. Like this. There, look at that. And again, you can already see that that's going to create lines for me, for my trees. So push it on and then pull it, so that we have these long, thin lines in the cling film. And hopefully that should really, really make a good picture for us. So again, push it down. Oh, look at that. Pleased with that. That's going to work okay. That, I just want a little bit more texture in there. That's it. So this paint will dry as you're seeing it. You can imagine how exciting that's going to be. Leave that just for a second, Sharon. Next thing to do is to think about our bluebells. Now, bluebells aren't just blue. They're not. They're not. They're a really rich, dark kind of purpley colour. So if I take my cobalt like that, and I want to add a smidgen at first of, oh yes, look at that. That's alizarin crimson. Now, if you're not sure of your colours and you want to just run it past yourself, I've got just a pad here that I use in the studio, and I can try my colours out like this to be sure that I like what I have. And if I really, really like them, I'll write it down underneath it, and I keep the pad, and then that gives me a recipe book. It works really well. But there's my colour, and it's on my brush. I'm not going to rinse it. I'll just keep that so that I can use it when I'm ready. I'll put it right there and try not to throw it on myself. If I fold the skirt of this back up like this, then I can come through here, and I intend to wet this. Like this. Through there like that. And then the next thing I want to do is, again, think about darker green around these edges. It's really important to frame your picture with these darker colours. Really, really important. First of all, shall we just imagine where we're going to have our path? I want this is my burnt sienna, small there, larger as it comes towards us, so that gives us somewhere to walk if we're imagining that this is going to be the woodland. And the first thing I want to do, I think, is just put in where I want my bluebells. Tuck it up underneath so that the colour can run up the trees. That's absolutely fine. Pop some through here. And then I want some on the edge of the path like this. And then I'm coming over here with a patch over here. That'll do. That'll do. I just want bluebells spotted in the woods, that's all. And then over here, I want to come in with my sap green to start with. So start with the light green, because then you can use your brush immediately into the dark green with no problems. If I use the dark green first, I can't then go into my light green. But with this on my brush, I don't need to clean it before I start nipping into the next colour. So I'm just being a bit lazy really, but it works. So we're going to put our green through like that, and then I know I want the darker colour in the edges. So again, I'm going for my Prussian blue into my sap green, and if I run that through here into the corners of my painting like that and like this, that gives it. And if you don't mix it too well, you can actually land up with some of the colour bleeding separately onto the paper. So it's just like, that's all I want to do. All right, so my next, and I've left some white areas, we'll see what happens with those later as well. But what we're going to do now is the same really as we did on the top. And I'll do this in a couple of pieces. And this time, I don't want to screw it. I'm just going to pop it on. I'm going to shape it how I want to. I'm going to shape some of the path as well so that we get texture on that too. Pat it down. And then again, come through. And then on this side, look at these lovely colours. Oh, I think they're scrummy. And you have to do this, everybody, whilst this is all still wet. If it starts to dry, you've had it. It's not going to happen. It will only happen because the paint is sitting in suspension on top of the work, on top of the paper. And that's how it has to be. Okay. Now, in good true fashion of all school children's programmes, earlier I made another version of this. So that can now go away. And I will show you what it looks like when it's dried. And we take the cling film away. Let's make sure that we've got the camera in the right place that you can see it. Let me just wait for that to catch up, because of course you're a couple of seconds behind me. There we are, that'll do, that's good. So this is it when it's dried. And you've got to bear in mind that if you want dark, glorious colour, we have to put the colour down in the first instance. But this one's worked really, really well. You know when it's ready and it's cooked, because can you see here, it kind of goes pitted. You get the white. So instead of a nice smooth finish like this, you get this pitted look to it. And this will tell you when it's ready to lift the cling film. So you can see where the cling film's actually touched it. It's created this pattern, and that's fabulous. That's what we want. Now, what I have over here, here is this is where we put our masking tape. I'm being very naughty. I'm using one of my matte pens for this. Shouldn't. Scalpel's good for this, everybody. You behave yourself, not like me. And if I pull off my masking tape, that's going to give me my tree in the foreground. And this is where we can play. We've got options here. We can come into this, and the first thing I think I want to do with it is to just make it a little less bright, because at the moment it's sitting there going, look at me, look at me, look at me. And we don't want that, do we? We don't want that. We want it to be a little more subtle than that. A lovely, lovely colour mix for something like this, for silver birch trees. If we take cerulean blue, like that, and we add a little bit of burnt umber. Now don't go mad with this. That's what I'm looking for. That strange sort of grey, look at that. Now these are two colours that absolutely loathe and detest each other. And when you put them in a palette like that and you walk away and you leave them, they separate. So already I think you can see that the blue is sitting on the outside of the paint. It's already kind of migrated to the edges. You can see the blue doing it now. And if we can add enough water to this, hopefully we can get this to do this on the paper too. So I'm putting it, just going to put it, look here already we can see. So I just want to pull a little bit of this grey through, a bit darker on this side, because this will be, if we look at it, if the light's here, this will be the side of our tree that's catching less of the sunlight. Don't worry about brush strokes, because brush strokes are actually quite all right at the moment, quite happy with those. And a little bit of water like that. And when we use these colours, they granulate, so you get this kind of texture. You can see that some of the brown in some places has wicked out of the mix. It's separated, doesn't like being with the blue, doesn't want to know. And here you can see where the cerulean blue has settled down into the dips in the paper, because this paper's lumpy bumpy. And it's a heavy pigment. It's heavy, big chunks of pigment, cerulean, and they've all settled into the paper, and it gives you this fabulous, beautiful texture, almost like a kind of lizard skin, really. Look at this brown here. All the time that we're talking, this brown here and here is separating out. So you can get some very, very exciting effects. I'm just going to leave that for a few minutes so that if it wants to just do its own thing, it can. Over here in the woodland, choices are we can take a flat brush like this, and if you just use it damp, so wet it and just dab it, and then you can come in to some of these areas if you think that it's a good trunk, and we can get hold of the colour and we can just pull it through to make it more defined. So I'm just turning that into a bit more of a tree trunk. Can you see? And because I've done that, it brings it forward, makes it look as though it's closer to us. I don't want to mess that, because I quite like that blue bleeding up into that. But what I'm going to do is come into this one, and I'm going to pick that up as well, pull that through. And then if we wanted to, you can carry on with that colour. So I'm just using residual colour and moving what's on my brush to pull up a branch. That's all I'm doing. I'm just using water and manipulating it. We can continue this branch if we wanted to. Move it, agitate it, move it. Song there, isn't it? Move it, move it. And we can do that. And that's quite a nice thing to do, because you're giving it a 3D look without being too obvious. I'm going to incorporate that into it as well, like that. Like that. All right. This is quite nice, so I want to come into this. Now, this is much more easily, God, yeah, talk about maul the English language. This is much easier if you use a flat brush like this. No two ways about it, because it cuts into the paper and it's stiff and it can bully the paint. If we try this with a nice soft brush like this, it wouldn't be quite as cooperative, you'd find. This is a nice one, so I want to use this one here. And again, I'm just coming through and pulling the colour. And it's just defining those few trees and making them stand out and making them look as though they're closer. Now, the other thing that you can do if you wanted to, you can come through with a thinner brush, something like this. This is a number 4. And we can pick up one of our colours. It might be quite nice to mix burnt umber and how about something like burnt umber. I wonder what that does with cobalt. That's not bad. Grey brown. And we can use this, and if you wanted to bring a tree through from a little closer again through here, we'll avoid that because that's beautiful. I don't want to mess that up. So I'm going to curl this one. And we could bring that up and through like that. And then you can bring branches off from it like this. And again, we can introduce that up through the canopy. You see what I'm doing here? Just pulling it through there, maybe through here, another branch through here. So we can do this as well. And that makes it look interesting. We could bring that through there. If you're looking at young oak trees have this tendency to have floppy little branches here, lower down the trunk. You can, this bottom here, we can settle that into the grass by coming into it, clean the brush, dab to get rid of the extra fluid on the brush, and then dig into the bottom of the tree like this so that it just disappears into the forest. So you're just coming into the bottom and just blending it away until it's gone. Of course, if you wanted to, you could also lift a highlight out of the tree by coming in again with a clean brush and just lifting some of the paint whilst it's still damp to give yourself a lighter area through the tree. So there we are. So that makes it again a little more interesting to look at rather than being solid. So we could have a tree this colour if you go into it and you make them paler. So I'm going to bring something up through here. I'm going to use some of the lines that I already have from my cling film, and if we bring something up through here and we make it paler, this makes this tree further away. And that's how we achieve the idea of distance. Make it higher up the picture, so this one's lower, and we make it paler so that it just is just there in the distance. And the same applies with the base of it. Come in and just dig into the bottom like that. All right. Now with this little treasure, that's not too bad at the moment. I'm going to now take a card. Shops very kindly give these to me to go shopping with, and I ignore them completely, shopping wise, and they all go in my art box because they're really, really useful. You can use them to scratch if you want to indent the paper, like we did yesterday with the pansies, or I could use it to scratch it to make logs and rocks, all sorts of things. But with this here, I want to come into this and I'm going to texture the tree. This is what this is all about, isn't it? I intend to take, this is my burnt umber, and I want to use my burnt umber over here, and I'm going to mix it with some Payne's Grey. My colours are drying up. And we need a goodly amount of paint here because we're going to be using it in quantity, so don't be mean. And I'll have a bit more of this. that. And I intend to use that now to dip my card in. Let's clean that brush, be a good girl. So with the card, we can dip it into the paint. Make sure we have it along the edge. And I'm going to come along the edge of my tree and I'm going to scratch and scrape. All right, do it again. Make sure I have it all along the card, down the edge of the tree, and I scratch. So just, you can do some wobbly wibbly bits if you want to be arty about it. And I'm softening that curve on there, and I'm going to do that and that. How much is left on there now? Can I do that? Yes, I can. And I want to do some of that and that. And I'm going to extend that a little bit higher up there to give the impression that it's going up and through. And then we also want to do that on the other side. Now this is cack-handed. I'm going to stand up for this because otherwise I can't get the angle right. So I'm coming in here and I'm going to curve it like this. There we go. This is a fantastic way to do a silver birch. It's so easy. And of course we can use this as well to draw off some twiggy bits if we want to. Use this and try and get the curve around the trunk if you possibly can. Like that. All right. Bear in mind now, when you're looking down the trunk, that curve's going to go this way, round and down. When we're looking up the trunk, it's going to tend to go the other way. It's going to go that way. And again, this is how you get that perspective going, to make it look as though you're looking down or you're looking up the trunk. So that's just well worth remembering to try and get that idea there. Now, you're quite welcome to then come in and just titivate any bits that you're not sure of, because you want a really good contrast between this and the background. I'm going to leave that scrumptious white there because again that looks as though it might be reflecting the light up, you know, so that would be the side that we would expect to see reflections. But we can come through there and just introduce some little branches again. And you can do as much of that as you want to, all over, all of it. Now, what I do want to do to show you here, I really don't like that. I don't like this hard edge here. So I'm going to go into that, let this dry for a minute, and I just want to just scumble that with this hard brush, dig into it, just get it to move like that. And then if you were feeling inclined, take something that's really pale. So I'm going for this colour that I've used on the tree. And I'm going to do something in there in a minute. I'm not quite yet. We'll do that last. You see what I was talking about with these colours, how those two have separated out the way they have. Quite incredible. But I want to use a bit more of that, a bit more of this, and I'm just going to introduce. I don't want to mess up the nice bits that I've got here, because I'm very aware that I do have some nice bits and pieces. So I'm not going to spoil those, but I'm just going to nip in and dive around with, this is a damp brush now, and just soften that. Don't be too much of a bully around the darker areas, because you'll move this dark colour. This is the blue of the bluebells, and I just want to drop a little bit into the tree as well, so that I have that kind of colour reflected in this area too. This we can interpret as shadow and shade, but I want it to be in the tree. And I also, now don't go too mad on this because you could lose the definition of the tree against the background, but there is also a little bit of green for some moss. Just a teeny bit. And that gives us a bit of moss on our tree as well. And just damp brush, just gently, gently, gently. The more we fiddle with that and play with it, the more we move it and we can make a mess of it. So put it in, be positive, dump it, leave it, let it dry. Simple as that. Now, up here, what I was thinking about as a final move with our, this is this colour, I'm going to come in here in this area and I want to, too dark. It's just in. Longer legs. And I want 2 ears. Still needs to be longer legs, bigger. Thinner brush. Thinner brush. Because then we can do some of that. A bit of that. We can give ourselves a stag in the forest. And again, ground him, damp brush, just come in and where his feet are. Just do that. And a little bit more colour, a little bit more colour. And that will be the shadow that he creates where he's standing. So you see, texture isn't the difficult thing that we originally think that it might be. We can use all of those techniques to create this incredible, interesting landscape that will pull you in so that you can just walk through, feel that you can walk through and maybe not disturb him too much. How about a little rabbit sitting on the path, just looking towards the light, a little bunny? It's up to you. You could have a man standing there or walking with his dog on a lead next to him. And it's just a case of doing it with dots and spots. You don't need to be too very, very specific, because the minute we start to do that, we lose that kind of diaphanous, mysterious, mystical quality. But when it's like this and you just look at it and is that what I think it is? Make your viewer look, make them tell themselves the story of your picture. But I hope that that's been interesting today. I'll be back with you and the next session will be Monday and we're going to be dealing with flavour. So my probable outcome there is going to be herbs and vegetables maybe, and interesting flowers in the garden that we could eat. So don't forget, look in on Monday and we'll do something interesting with flavour. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. It's been lovely to have you. Keep your eyes on my Facebook page for times and for anything else. But don't forget, if you look at the International Nature Journaling website, they have videos and hints and tips. And today, fabulous artist on there. You'll be able to catch the video, who is actually dealing with texture on animals like lizards and reptiles. He is amazing, all with graphite. So do go and have a look and see how he works as well. There's lots and lots that you can join in with. All right then, so I'll see you again after the weekend. Have a lovely, lovely weekend and we'll all get together soon. You're very welcome, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments so that I can see what you think. All right, everybody. Bye for now. Bye-bye.